Okay, good morning. Just getting myself set up here. Here we go. All right, so last time I checked in with you, we talked about the eye, and I showed you some anatomical features of the eye. I also attached a video of a cow eye dissection, so you can see what that looks like if you want to. Basically, the cow eye works the same as the human eye with a few little exceptions. So, one of the things I mentioned in the video is the muscle attachments to the eyeball. And so, in your own eye, you have multiple muscles that are attached to allow you to have that like full circular motion in your eye. Whereas in some animals, like the cow, they have fewer muscles. And so for the cow, they have like up down, they have side side, but that's it. Animals like that are required more to turn their heads to see than we are. That's mentioned. Another thing that can vary is the amount of colors in the iris, which is the part that like allows you to dilate or open up the pupil and contract and close in the pupil to regulate the amount of light. Another thing that varies between us and other species would be the kind of features on the retina, that back part of the eye where all the light lands, and you get that upside down image that then gets relayed to your brain through the optic nerve. So some animals have a more reflective coating on the back of their eye, which allows them to see better in low light conditions, function better in the natural world at night. So if you're driving at night, the headlights on, and there's an animal at the side of the road, and they turn and look at you, these are the kind of animals where when the headlights catch their eyes, you see green eyes. And that's because they have that extra reflective thing like you saw in the back of the cow eye, if you chose to watch it, that allows them to capture more light at night. We don't have that. Some other things that differ about what's on your retina, and they can differ within us as a species as well. There's obviously variety between all of us. We don't all have the exact same pieces in our genetic code, and that varies some anatomical pieces, structures that are built in us. But what I was going to say is that on the back of the cow's eye, they don't have the feature we call cones, and that's going to be the first part of our notes. So on the retina, there's two pieces. There's what we call rods, and there's pieces which we call cones, and they give you different features to your vision. So let's start our note for today. I think the title to put on this is just going to be vision. Most of what we're going to talk about today are devices that are used to correct issues with vision. Okay, so the first part, needed to understand that. We talked about going back to the eye. Okay, and then specifically what we're talking about today is the retina and some of the features of the retina. So, in a healthy individual, in a healthy eye, the retina is like a coating on the very back of the eyeball, where the light is going to hit and cause the image, allow you to like perceive the natural world through those light rays coming through your eye. So, there's two features in our eye on the retina. There are what we call rods, and there are what we call cones. Okay, so what rods do is they allow you to see shapes and movement. So they allow you to identify structures that are there, like contrasting, okay, all in different shades of gray. So they detect shapes and movement. Right? Some animals just have this. So that's what the cow has. The cow has rods, doesn't have any cones. So it sees the world basically in shades of gray. But within that gray, you can contrast from like, almost white to black. And so you can distinguish where things are. You can see them, their shapes, and their movements. But you don't see the full range of color that we do. So that's what cones do. They allow you to detect color. And we have in the back of our eye 3 different kinds of cones. They are a combination of red, green, and blue. So these cones detect these different elements of white light. And as we looked at right at the very beginning of this unit, those three primary colors of light can be combined, intensified, or dimmed down to make all the colors of the rainbow. So in a healthy human eye, with a full range of capabilities, you would have all three different kinds of cones functioning properly, and then you see the full range of colors. Okay, and different species have variety in terms of what they have here, and they might not be exactly similar to us. Okay. All right, the other part of the retina that I was going to talk about is that you can have, like we talked about the other day, the retina detach, which means it comes away from the back of the eye, or pieces of it are coming away from the back of the eye. And that creates a whole bunch of problems. It stops you from being able to see correctly because it's not in the right place and the light rays aren't hitting it correctly, and a host of issues. So we'll come back to that. I'll try to come back to that at the end as well. But these pieces are good to start with. The other thing that I wanted to talk about was inside the eye, we talked about the lens. And if you watch the video, they took it out, you can see it's a very hard structure, and it kind of has a shape like that. It sort of bulges out in the middle. We move from talking about the eye to talking about glasses and things like that, lenses are like what I've got in my glasses. It's a piece of glass or a plastic that transmits light fully, but it usually has a bit of a shape to it. So it's not a flat piece of glass. When you have a flat piece of glass, the light ray hits the glass and it transmits right through to the other side. So it keeps traveling on the same path it was going. So as it comes to that flat piece of glass, it will go through, transmit to their side, and keep going. Okay. Now, if you ever have a flat piece of glass and you're getting some reflection, that's a little bit more complicated. It's like that storefront window that you can't see to the other side. What's happening there is the light is coming in on an angle, and then it's reflecting off at the same angle. So it might, like, I don't know if this is working here. It might come in like this and then bounce off like this. Okay, so that can happen as well. But we're going to just talk about, let's assume the light rays are traveling on a straight path and they're going through the other side. So in your eye, it's not flat. It has this bulging shape. So that shape, which we'll draw here, is called converging. So the first, let's just use lenses. The first type of lens you can have is a converging lens. And its shape looks like this. It bulges in the center and then comes back to a point. Oh, it's not too bad. It's not too great either. At the bottom. So like you kind of saw in the eyeball. That's the shape we have in our eyeball. Okay, wider at the middle than it is at either end. This can also be called a convex lens. So I'm just going to put this in brackets here. Oops. Convex. Same. Okay, most of the time I am going to, you can't really see that very well, CONVEX. I'm going to call it converging because that's a better explanation for what the lens actually does. So when you have this kind of lens, what happens is if a light ray comes along and it hits the center, it'll keep going, transmit fully right out the other side in a straight line. Okay. If the light ray is coming up here near the top or the bottom where it hits, where it's sort of angled, if I'm going to go from the top, I would do this with a ruler maybe normally. It hits the lens, okay? And then instead of going straight through, it starts to bend the light. Okay, so it's not like it curves. When it hits that, it changes direction. So it's still going straight, but it's altered its direction. If I come in from the bottom, I get to here, and the light ray was going straight. It's still going to continue to go straight. It's going to transmit through, but it is going to change direction. And you can see it's all sort of heading towards the same point here. The light rays can keep going past that point, but this is why we call them converging. These kinds of lenses turn the light in, so they head towards a focusing point over here. Okay, and that's what's in your eye. So the light comes in from the outside world. it will first hit the cornea, which is round as well, like this. So starts to turn the light in. And then it hits the lens behind the cornea after it goes through the pupil. It has the same shape and it still continues to bend that light in until it sort of hits this point, and then it sort of continues back from there. And here's your retina, and it hits your retina back here. Okay. What's most important to understand right now is that converging lenses bend the light rays so that they come to this central point here. Okay. The second kind of lens is called a diverging lens. This is not in your eye. Also known as concave, C-O-N-C-A-V-E. Okay. And the appearance of the diverging lens is like this. You are wider at the top and bottom, and you are in the middle. Okay, so piece of glass or piece of transparent plastic. The idea is that if you hit the middle again, the light ray goes straight through. Okay, but if I come in near the top and I hit on one of these curved surfaces, it is going to keep the light ray going in a straight line, but change the direction of its path. And this time it goes outwards, diverges. If I come in on the bottom, I hit, and this model is, there's actually some more detail to this. So it actually bends once here and bends once here, but altogether what happens is as it goes through, it comes out diverging. So this model is a little bit flawed, but for general understanding, as long as you get that when you hit this kind of lens, the light rays spread out, they diverge. And when you hit this kind of lens, the light rays come together, they converge. All right, this one being what's in your eye, and also what happens with your cornea, because it has that same rounded feature. And this different, we'll talk about where we use that. All right, so that's the first part to that. I guess what I wanted to go to next is talking about what it means to be nearsighted versus farsighted, and what your eye can and can't do in those situations, and then how we correct for that. So let's start with farsighted. If you are farsighted, okay. What that means is that you can see things that are, you can focus on things that are in the distance, but you can't focus on things that are right in front of you. So whenever you're talking about these, it's easy to get them confused. But if you are farsighted, what that means is you can see what is far away. Okay, so you can focus on distant objects sort of only. Okay, so you have trouble, your eye can't do those changes to the lens we talked about yesterday, to allow you to switch between focusing on far away and focusing on near. So you have an issue within your eye. Your lens is limited basically to how much it can squash. So to focus on things close up, you need to have the lens sort of wider. And when you look at things far away, it can go narrower. So you have no trouble if you're farsighted in that narrow range. That's why you can see things far away. But when you bring a book up in front of you, your lens can't widen enough to focus on what is right in front of you. So here's what's happening. Or let's just look at how you correct for that. So if we look at an eyeball, okay, so we have the cornea here on the outside. We have the pupil here, somewhere in here, and then we have the lens behind. Okay. If you are farsighted, like I said before, this just can't get wide enough to focus on something that's in front of you. So I'm just trying to see if I want to draw something that would be close in front of you. Let's try a book. It should be pretty simple. Okay, lines in the book, can't focus on those letters in the book. So what you need to do is put something in your eye that does another layer basically of bending the light in because your lens isn't doing that. So in this situation, you are going to put a lens in front of your eye that is a converging lens. Okay. So what this will allow your eye to do is when the light bounces off the book and comes towards your eye, if it hits this structure in front, which would be your glasses for this condition, the light ray is going to come, and this lens is already going to start to bend the light a little bit so that when it gets here, it keeps bending more. Okay, like that. If I look at something from another part of the book, comes in, this lens will start to bend it a little bit before it even gets here, and then this can bend it some more, and then it hits where it's supposed to hit on the retina, and you see a correction for that. Okay, so what this lens is doing is it bends the light before it hits your own cornea and lens. Okay, so that where the image is falls at the correct part on your retina. Okay, if you didn't have this lens in front of you, what would happen essentially, if I try to recreate the scenario down here, cornea, pupil for the light to come in, your lens doing its best. Okay, book here, no lens. What's going to happen is the light's going to come in. Had to travel straight. Oh, that doesn't look straight. Oh, that's terrible. Okay. Traveled straight the whole time. Just follow the line on the page. Traveled straight the whole time. Got to here and then got bent. Okay. Traveled from the bottom. Traveled straight the whole time. Then it got bent. But because there's no lens here to start the bending early and your lens couldn't get wide enough to bend enough, what is going to be on the back of your retina is going to be blurry because the focusing part is landing back here. It's actually projecting behind where the retina would be. It's not in focus yet. It has to land perfectly right on the retina to be in focus. So because the light didn't get bent enough and this lens couldn't do it, couldn't bend it enough, the image lands somewhere back here. And what that looks like to you, to your brain, is blurriness. Okay, blurry words. Whereas if you put your reading glasses on, the words on the page get bent a little bit, the light gets bent a little bit, sorry, I should say, before it gets to this. So it's an additional layer of bending it so that where it should focus is lined up on the back of the eyeball, hitting the retina where it should, not blurry. I hope that makes sense. Okay. I think that's all I'm going to say for that part for now. If we go to what it means to be nearsighted, I'll try and squeeze this in here. This means that you can see things up close, you just can't see things in the distance, okay? That has been traditionally the kind of thing that I have a correction for. Although as I age, what tends to happen with everybody is your lens isn't able to move as much. It gets harder and more rigid. And so it can't do this nice like expansion that allows you to see things close up anymore because of the aging. And so as you get older, most people over 40, and then as it gets more and more common after that, even if they never had to wear reading glasses their whole life, start to have a need for reading glasses. They need that assistance. You might have parents or people you know that have started to do that. The other thing you'll see people do as they're getting closer and closer to having that problem where their lens won't widen for them anymore is when they go to read something, instead of holding it in front of them, they like hold it back. So you might notice with your parents, for example, if they're reading their phone and the text too small, is they will like do this to try and see it. The next stage would be to actually put on the glasses so they can. Eventually this doesn't work. It gets too much. Your eye just, it can't compensate. It gets worse and worse. And so you need to have some kind of corrective glasses to help you out with that. So nearsighted means you can focus on objects that are close to you, that are close, but you can't see things far away. So for me, when I went to get my license when I was 16, that's when I first got sunglasses because I was having trouble with the distance. And then for me, it just got worse and worse and worse to the point where now I wear them all the time. And now I'm also having trouble seeing things close by as well. So soon that'll lead to what we call progressive lenses is the new term, but it used to be called bifocals, where you need help focusing both. So I'm going off task here. What was I going to say? So for nearsighted, what we're looking at here, if we have the eyeball, I'm going to do side by side this time. Here's the lens. If you can't see things far away, what's happening is this can't stretch out nice and long. So when you have your thing in the distance, let's say, I don't know, let's say it's a tree. Okay. The light rays come into your eye straight, and then they're going to converge too quickly so that this piece here, the focusing point, tree, is actually, I did it upside down. We talked about why that is the other day. You can see how they cross and flip, is in front of the retina. So this is also blurry because by the time the light rays travel here, the light rays have expanded out too much, and that will just look blurry. Nothing is in focus. Like we talked about before, it has to be in focus where the lines cross, and then where the focused place of the image is has to be on the retina. So what you do for this situation is you use the opposite kind of lens. You put a lens out here in front that is going to actually direct the light rays out a little bit so that when they hit here, they converge appropriately and put it here. So let's just draw this here with the corrective lens. Eyeball, cornea, not as good this time. Lens in your eye, retina the back where we want it to land. Think of it like a projector screen, okay? You want to, when the light comes out, you want it to land in focus. What you can do on a projector is like twist the dial to bring it into focus to get it in the right spot. But if you get too short or too far back, it's going to be blurry. So you want a convergence right in the perfect spot. Okay, so here's our tree out in the distance. And then what we put in front is the diverging style lens. And then the light ray comes in straight. And then this would like send it out a little bit. That doesn't look so great, Andrea. Comes in straight, and then it bends it out a little bit. And then this will bring it like that. Let's try to do a better job down here. Light ray comes in straight. This causes it to bend out a little bit. And then when it comes in, so it just expands it. So they're kind of going out, diverging a bit, so that when they come in, they've been forced to go out a little bit before they come in, so that you get the focus on the right point. So I'm going to do this here. It doesn't actually show it that well in my picture, but it bends the light out before it hits the cornea and lens. All right, and then depending on your prescription, there's a difference in like how much you need it to bend out or in. And so you have different prescriptions based on what that need is. It used to be that was purely about the thickness of the lens. So when they used to joke about like Coke bottle glasses, before they had like all the new technology with glass and how to make it thin and still bend more than another, they would be really, really thick for some people, pieces of glass, to the point where like the eyes on the other side looked all distorted and magnified and things like that, because there was so much glass there and the need was so great to bend the light because the lens couldn't do it for itself to allow it to hit the right spot of the retina. So in a nutshell, what's happening here is to see things close by, your lens has to be quite wide. If it can't get wide enough on its own, then you put another piece of glass in front to add to the widening so it hits the right spot on the retina. Okay. If you can see things that are far away but not close up, then your lens can't get thin enough. So you have to put another piece of glass in front of your eye to allow it to get thinner. So the light rays get sort of diverged a bit, spread out before they come in and then come together to hit the right spot on your retina. All right. To add to this a little bit, like I said, bifocals or progressive lenses means you can't focus on either. So your eye is having trouble. There's a lot of trouble in the range of motion in your lens. It can't stretch or squash. And so what they do for that is they make the top part of the glasses allow you to see far away, and they make the under part of your glasses make it so that you can see close up. So you actually have to, your brain has to get used to the fact that when you look through the top of your glasses, to see far away, you look through the top of your glasses, and to see close up, you look through the bottom of your glasses. So they used to actually have, you could see the cutout where the different kind of glass was inserted on the bottom half for reading, and then the rest of the glass would be for seeing farther away from you, less in front of you. Now what they do is they don't actually cut and insert those little pieces for the near, and they blend it all. So it looks like one piece of glass, and that's why they call it progressive. Right? You can also, another pretty common thing to have is astigmatism. Astigmatism means that you have some kind of misshapen part to your eye. I have a little bit of this as well. So the prescription isn't the same all over your eye. It means that like you might have one prescription needed like vertical and another lateral or some other piece. So glasses are one way to do this. You can also put contacts in. They do the same thing. So contacts have different prescriptions to them as well, and they sit on top of your cornea. And then when the light comes in, those contacts, those little pieces of plastic, which are transparent, let the light through, but they bend it a bit before it gets to the lens behind your own cornea. So it helps your focusing. And it used to be harder to get contacts for astigmatism because they had to sit a certain way. If they spun around, it would throw your focus off because your eye isn't the same everywhere. But now they can account for that as well. So you can get contact lenses for that. Another way if you don't want to have glasses or contacts, they can correct your vision with laser eye surgery. They don't actually mess around with the lens in that case. What they do is usually reshape your cornea so that it can diverge or converge the light rays before it hits the lens. And I'll attach a video of sort of what that surgery can look like. But that would be another option that people do to correct their vision. Okay. If your retina detaches, which means that this back part of your eye has come off, so it can't receive the light rays and can't put the image into focus, they go in there and usually do some surgery to repair that. There's also, in some cases for people on their retina, to get back to this color thing, the circumstance where they've been born completely blind, which means they have no vision. The retina isn't detecting the light rays and not sending a signal to the brain. And there's been some interesting experimental stuff about putting like a electronic device, like a light sensitive computer chip kind of idea, on the back of the eyeball where the retina would be, and then having that send the signals to the brain, so that you would go from being completely blind to actually being able to see the world by having this chip there to detect the light rays, interpret the light rays, and send that electrical signal to your brain. Right, which is still in the works, I believe. I haven't checked into what that looks like yet in terms of common usage and risks and benefits and how successful that's been. Okay, so let's talk about what it means to be colorblind. Okay, so you can be completely colorblind. It is very, very rare. True color blindness would mean that you don't see any color at all. You see the world in versions of gray. What most people have is, even though we call it color blindness, is a color deficiency. So color blindness, you would see no color at all. Very rare. Color deficiency isn't that rare. Could be that we have someone in our class who's color deficient. Okay, so there's different kinds of this. I'm just going to call them color blindness because that's what we call them. The most common one is red-green color blind. So you can't tell the difference between red or green. Mr. Galbraith has that. If you've had Mr. Galbraith, most people know that because he can't tell the difference between the red and the green pen, for example. Looks like the same color to him. That is related to the cones on your retina. So you have some kind of trouble with your cones. One of them's not working, and that means you can't see the full range of colors like the rest of us see the full range of colors. There's other ones too. I'm going to attach like a little website which lets you do a little color test on yourself. And then if you do have some kind of color deficiency, it will tell you which one and explain to you which colors you have trouble seeing and things like that. So you cannot distinguish between certain colors. Example, red, green. Okay, there are some ways to correct for this. There are some glasses, depending on which kind of deficiency you have, that you can put on your eyes, and it will allow you, and some you can't. There tends to be more males that are red-green colorblind. If you take grade 11 bio, you'll learn about why that is. There's a genetic component. It's a sex-linked genetic component, so which means it's just more likely that you would have it as a male than a female. Okay. I'm trying to think. I think that helps the bulk of what I was going to say right now. So I am going to stop that there. You'll see I've attached, or I'm going to attach some things that go over some of these pieces. And then also I'm going to attach an article that talks about Leonardo da Vinci and how he may have had an advantageous eye disorder. So he may have seen the world differently. And as one of the exceptional artists that are out there, it may have that may be a piece to that how we saw the world was different than how the rest of us see the world. And maybe that gave him a flair that the rest of us are lacking. So I'm going to leave it at that for now, I think. And I will catch up with you in a couple days. My son is standing right here waiting for me. So it's just reminded me of one funny thing I was going to say that he told me, which is that apparently there's an effort in place to try and destroy Google Classroom's ratings by students, because if the ratings get too low, I guess there's usually some sort of deal where they have to take it off the App Store or whatever it might be. So hopefully none of you are involved in any kind of that shenanigans, right? Okay, so I'm going to say goodbye for now. And this video, I don't know how long it is. I feel like it might be a little long. But like I said, I will check back on Friday, and maybe I'll see you at a Google Meet tomorrow if that's something that you can do. All right, guys. I don't know if this is always the problem when I go to turn off. See you later.